Welcome to an old new show or a new old show. It's been so long since we did it, we got an error. But welcome back. Now, you think we just gave up doing the show? We scheduled a bunch of shows and had a bunch of issues. Howie Chaney, welcome back to Off the Record.
I wish a bunch was the accurate word for it. It's instead of a bunch, there's a ton of issues that came about between me and you, and between our work and personal life and everything else. But we've got a lot of coaches geared up, ready to come and join us as soon as we can get everything back in line.
So it is, here is, I just want everybody to know the truth. Here is part of the issue. I overcommitted myself during football season, and we were at the max every night. So we've had a couple of coaches have to change because the fall is so tough. But we've got things lined up. The first show we're going to do is going to be a recap with Coach Tyler Van. Coach Van was with us much of the year. So on the 16th, we're going to sit down with Coach Tyler Van and his stats man from this year, Howie Chaney. What's up, stats man? I think that needs to be your name, stats man.
Stats, man. Yeah, that'd be a good one if I knew what I was doing, I guess. But doing great, Randall. How you doing, buddy? I know everything's been busy between our work and kids and all the other stuff. You had a concert tonight for your daughter had one, and mine was supposed to have one, but it got canceled at the last minute. So here we are live with, like Randall said before, went on the zero notes to go by today. So
Yeah, yeah.
we're just
Well,
going to wing it.
our daughters both play in a band, which takes up more time than you think. We also got, and we don't know the date of this, we've tried to schedule it, but Coach Heather Powell from Five High School is going to be on with us hopefully in the next week or two. Heather is a friend to both of us and someone that, when I first started into broadcasting, was a superstar athlete at Five High School. Won what, four state championships, 3, 4 state championships in girls basketball. Finished runner up in volleyball. Was all state in softball. It's just phenomenal. And now she's the Lady Red Devils head coach at Five. So she'll be joining us the next few weeks. And I'm excited about that, Howie.
Yeah, looking forward to having her on there. Also, Zach King from Savannah High School, the head basketball coach. We had Coach Finch, the girls' coach, on. I think that was actually our last show that we was able to do, and we kind of had
Like
to
a month
Zoom.
ago.
Yeah, we had to Zoom through it because there was storms coming through and everything. So Coach King has been, he's has committed to do the show for us, and we're working on some other stuff to get lined up. And it was hard for me and Randy to get on here when we could, and it's even harder during basketball season to get these coaches on here because it seems like they've got games every other night.
Yeah, yeah. So we're going to try to do this. We're on Tuesday night right now, but we're going to try to stay here and stay put. But Howie does the clock at Five High School, so we may have to move around some days. But we're going to try to get a show out every week at some point. We had a real good following, and like I said, people started emailing me, Howie, and asked me, "Did you set River City Media down? You went from 12 shows to like one." And we even changed the name of 3 Hour Sport, moved its day, changed the cast. It became Regular Speculation, but it's still 3 Hour Sport. What we're trying to do is grow. And sometimes there's growing pains. We started, Howie, and immediately went up to 40 to 50,000 visits a month. But um, it wasn't growing the way I wanted it to either. It was becoming more about just sports, 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 sports. And there's a lot I love in life besides sports, just like you. We've got kids. We both love wrestling, and it became. I don't want it all become known only as a football channel. And during the fall, that's a lot of what it became was just a football channel.
That's what everybody is obsessed with during the fall, actually. So, but right now, you got the basketball, you got still got football going on. Got the
Yep.
championship playoffs coming up. You've got the NFL playoffs coming up. You got the bowl games, but you also have basketball going on. In a normal year, you'd have hot stove topics of baseball, but with the lockout, shutdown, whatever you want to call it, there's not much going on with it at the moment. But normally, that would be a hot topic as well.
Well, that's a good place to start. Let's start and I didn't say we'd talk about this, but the Braves, they went on just a magical run this fall, Howie. And it was for all the teams the Braves had that you felt like should win the World Series and didn't. I feel like we got one back because I felt like this team never should have been there. And especially after Acuna got hurt, it became just like we won a world championship with arguably the best without the best player in baseball.
Absolutely, and I feel bad for Smokes and Glavine and Maddox if they would have had this offense playing with them now. I mean, you would have had three pitchers with possibly 25 to 30 wins each.
Yeah,
Because
it's
if you
pretty
remember back
spectacular.
in the, remember back in the day, they would lose games 1-0. Just
Yeah,
because they didn't have no offense helping them out.
lost the seventh game of the World Series 1-0
11
to
innings, wasn't it?
Jack Morris. So
Wasn't it Smokes and Morris that went 10, 11 innings?
yeah, well, Smokes went 9, and they brought in Charlie Brant, and he gave up the immediate run. But Morris went 10 innings for the win, to win a game 7 with the Minnesota Twins in '92. So
Right.
when you lose World Series games 1-0, it's tough.
But
But
like
Howie,
you
I know
said,
we got
this team came out of nowhere. Nobody, at the All-Star break, nobody was giving them a chance to even make the playoffs, and then all of a sudden they win the division and get on this roll that, as coaches and in this case managers, you got to get hot at the right time, and Atlanta
yeah.
done that. They got hot exactly at the right time.
So Howie, one of the big stories in high school football up here, of course, was South Pittsburgh. And I know I talked to you a little bit about the story. And this is kind of becoming a year in recap. May have been good show to do a year in recap. But one of the things we missed is South Pittsburgh lost their head coach in week 2, lost 3 weeks of their football program to COVID. I I saw them week 1 and thought they were a 5 or 6 win team. Had a schedule that included North Jackson, Nashville Overton, number 1 team in the state, any division. They played somebody else, Austin East, traditional power out of Knoxville. And I thought they would do good to win 6 games, 7 games. Their coach leaves, Chris Jones, and goes back to the Canadian Football League as the defensive coordinator of the Toronto Argonauts. Hey, and they got put out of the playoffs the same week that South Pittsburgh won a state title. So these kids put it together and win a freaking state title. It's got to be one of the best runs I've ever seen in high school football.
If I'm not mistaken, you said that they didn't have one coach; they had 2 coaches for the rest of the
Co-head
year.
coach. I
And
talked to Coach Stone last night or today. So
and
yeah,
and that was they pulled that team together and made them unite like probably no one else was able to do or would have been able to
right.
do, because most teams would have quit when their coach quit, basically. Even though he went and took another job, he basically quit on them after the second game of the year. And they pulled this team together and pulled off a great run and held it together. And hats off to them.
So another good story in Alabama. Well, not good story, bad story, but it was probably the story of the year. Fife got their record stretched out. I think it was to 65 in a row. It became the nation's second longest winning streak. Finally went down to Geraldine, but then made a pretty good run in the playoffs all the way to the quarterfinals. So Fife, even though they lost, and we talked to Coach Benefield, I thought they were a pretty good story. That a bunch of kids, after 3 straight championships, that probably didn't have expectations to being 10-2, goes 10-2 and gets to, or 11-2, and gets to the state semifinals. That was a pretty big story down your way.
It was. They lost a ton of seniors off of last year's team. They, if I'm mistaken, they only had 4 seniors on this year's team, which those 4 seniors did play a fair amount over the years in the past, But everybody knows that Fife is. They're one of those that you don't really they don't really rebuild. They just kind of reload and keep it rolling, kind of like the Duke of Coach K's basketball teams, and then kind of like that fellow down in Tuscaloosa and Coach Saban. They just plug players in and keep on chugging along. But of course, expectations there are high all the time at Fife, regardless of what the situation is. But countywide, a lot of people thought that they would be down, but they, pretty much, except for Geraldine, went through and, beat everybody in the county. And, I think they did better than a lot of people kind of anticipated to a certain extent.
Who ended up winning 2A? Was it Piedmont?
The 3A champion was Piedmont.
3A.
They were down to Memory Academy, I think, is who they was playing. If I'm mistaken, the same team that Fife played last year. 6 or 7 D1 commitments on that team. They got down early, and Piedmont came back in the second half and kind of did like Fife did last year, just kind of came out after halftime and, showed them who the boss was and came out victorious.
Well, we'd be remiss if we didn't cover one more thing from the area. And I know Coach Van's going to be on here in a couple of weeks. And I so underestimated Coach Van in that program. I knew we as River City Media, we support all the DeKalb County schools, but we had kind of adopted Coach Van as first of all, he's a friend of ours. He's a personal friend of ours. And, of course, Coach Benefield is too. I list them as my friends. If you look at my phone, their numbers both are in there. Coach Van brought a new offense to Sylvania, played fairly well against Fife, had a chance to win football game, kind of got roped the first week at Sachs, but put together a really nice football season, qualified for the playoffs, but it was a 3-way tie, so they ended up getting a 3rd seed. And I think they had to open the what?
They got the 2nd seed, so they was at home against the state champion Piedmont Bulldogs.
Yeah. I was getting there. I was going to say the team. So they lost to Fife. They lost to Sachs. They lost to Piedmont. That's pretty much the elite. If you compete with those 3 teams, you're going to be right there, Howie.
Well, we'll run it down real quick. First game of the year against Sachs, got down 14-0. Sachs got the ball, drove it down, scored. Then Sylvania got the ball, pick 6. Anyway, down 14-0 before the bleachers are even full. Ended up being a closer game than a lot of people expected there toward the end. Sachs made it to the semifinals of the 3A state playoffs against Fife. Got beat by a couple of points. Played them, hard-nosed game. Fife made it to the quarterfinals, and then in the playoffs they played against Piedmont that ended up winning it all. So the 3 losses came to 3 very good playoff teams.
Absolutely, and that program had some wins. Of course, up on Sand Mountain, it all starts with they beat Plainview. So
yeah, absolutely. That was the main thing. Being from Savannah, and one of your main goals, or the main goal at Savannah, is to beat Plainview. That's what that's the main goal that you want as far as no matter what it is, whether it's checkers or shuffleboard or whatever, you want to beat Plainview regardless.
That's it. So let's move on a little bit to college football. First of all, Howie, I was really proud of the effort the Vols put in. I think most people, I said here on the show and on the show multiple times, I thought they'd win 6 football games. And I really was killed. My little group of the 3R Sports, Robbie said if they won 3 games, it would be a good year. I think Raj might have predicted 4 and 8. Ended up winning 7 football games, playing Purdue in the Music City Bowl. And while it's not Alabama, I think Tennessee made a lot of strides this year. And I think after a decade and a half, Jeremy Pruitt, Butch Jones, Derek Dooley, Lane Kiffin, I feel like the coaching situation got fixed, Howie.
Yeah, and it's good and bad for Tennessee. It's good that got the coaching situation fixed, and it's bad because of he showed what he could do with very little talent. So that could put him as one of the top coaching candidates for a lot of schools around the nation.
He's going to make some money in Knoxville because they're going to give him a raise right now. So, I mean, and he's an Oklahoma kid or played at Oklahoma. So, first thing that we thought of as soon as Oklahoma, Lincoln Riley left, I was like, oh, no. Oh, please don't Lane Kiffin us and go out. But I'm pretty happy with my ball situation. I want to get to the BCS in a second, but Saturday I think we saw Nick Saban prove when you put Nick Saban's back against the wall, he's a hard guy to beat. So I think the whole world thought Georgia was going to run over Alabama after the 2 or 3 overtime win over Auburn. Nick Saban's just the best in the business, man. And I just said, I'm a Tennessee graduate, Tennessee season ticket, Tennessee alum. But how can you sell that guy short? Bama did it again.
Yeah, they did. Saban's one of the best. I mean, I'm not even going to say one of the best. I'm going to say he's the best college football coach there is. I have to say he's one. Then number 2 would possibly be Bear Bryant. So Alabama's probably had 2 of the best college coaches to ever step on the field.
The only argument for Bear Bryant that I ever get is a few people that'll say Urban Meyer because he won so much so fast. But I'm with you. I'm a Bear Bryant guy. So go ahead.
Urban won a lot, but I think he got at the right places at the right time. Had the right talent, and he knew that the talent was going to be gone, so he left right behind them.
Had a heart attack, he said, at Florida. So,
well, didn't he have one somewhere else as well? But anyway, that's neither here or there. But when Coach Saban is, and what's so strange about it to me is he knew he was going to be playing Georgia, so it makes me wonder how long did he prepare for the Georgia game before the Auburn game.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't want to take nothing away from Auburn. Auburn played great. If Auburn had a quarterback, Alabama would have probably gotten beat. But I also feel like that Alabama is kind of overlooking Auburn to get to Georgia a little bit.
And I don't want to take anything away from Georgia. I felt like Georgia might have believed the hype. Howie, they heard all year they were the greatest defense in college football history. And, and I do think Georgia has a legit chance to win the national championship. How many times has Alabama not won the SEC but won the national championship? So I think that Georgia has a legit chance to win. But when it all's said and done, Alabama gets Cincinnati. I don't think Cincinnati can play with Alabama. How about you?
I don't think they can. And I'm glad they let Cincinnati come in. And here's why.
Absolutely.
Everybody's talking about the Power 5, the Power 4, the Power 4, the Power 5, and all this. Why does SEC get 2 schools in there? Well, first of all, SEC is the best conference in the nation by far. Number two, Cincinnati, they didn't play the toughest schedule in the world, but they beat who they had to beat to get in there. Put them in there. Let's see what happens. If they pull off the upset of Alabama, hey, put other teams like that in there every year. Let's see what happens.
Absolutely.
But now, if Alabama comes in and steamrolls them, that should prove a point saying this is why certain conferences do not need to be in the BCS title.
I'm a big hopeful a big believer and hopeful that not only will we get to 8 teams at some point, we'll get to 16. And then when we do that, then these matchups will become, and eventually somebody would win one of them. Cincinnati would beat Alabama one day, or Cincinnati would beat Georgia, but ain't going to happen in this 4-pot, I don't think. The game that I think is more interesting is Georgia-Michigan. I think Georgia's 7-point favorite. I just feel like Georgia, coming off of this loss, will be super motivated against Michigan, don't you?
Yes, and I'll go on the record saying right now that if Michigan beats Georgia, Kirby Smart is on the major hot seat.
Yeah.
Even though he had a great season, even though he had a great season, he can't win the big one right now. It don't seem like.
No, it's becoming. He's got to get by Nick Saban, and he's not done it. Florida took a step back, but I mean he ain't got by Nick Saban, and if he goes in the college football playoffs and lays the egg against George Harbaugh, I'm with you.
Yeah, and Harbaugh and them, they came out of nowhere. I heard on the radio. I went over to the Falcons game Sunday, and they were talking about I was listening to one of the sports talk shows over there, and they're talking about it's been since I think they said 1990. You can correct me on this. That a team like Michigan that was unranked ended up being ranked in the top 2 or 3 and with a chance to play for a national championship. They're saying the last team that done that was that great team out of Georgia Tech.
Yeah, that was 90.
And Georgia Tech ended up winning it all that year, if I ain't mistaken.
Yeah, they shared it with Colorado, but shouldn't have shared it. Yeah, you're right. Well, let's dip over to a little more painful subject. And we've already talked about this off the air a little bit. And, the Falcons at times this year have looked okay. And at times they have looked horrible. You're a Falcon season ticket holder. What's your opinion of the situation in Atlanta right now?
Yeah, they look great during warm-ups, and then after that, it just goes downhill. Like you said, they look great sometimes, and then other times it's just like it seems like they never saw football in their life. And, it's just I don't know.
They played well against Tampa. They lost, but that's the defending world champion. They didn't embarrass themselves.
Right, yeah, they played good, but it's just one of those things where earlier in the year, I feel like they're finally getting to know their personnel, what to do with them, where to put them at, how to use them, and everything. They brought some people in that they're a little bit disappointed in as far as they're not producing like they thought they would. Davis is one of the main ones, I feel like. But I think Coach Smith and Fontenot will get everything kind of straightened out, but it's not going to be an overnight type thing. It's going to take a couple of seasons. But we both know, we've been around sports long enough to know, sometimes they won't give people long enough to do what they need to do to make it right.
You're right. Now, it's strange we're talking about people they brought in. I want to talk about Cordell Patterson. Now, Cordell's 30 years old, but Arthur Smith finally figured out what to do, what no one else figured out for the last 9 years that Cordell Patterson was. He has a plan for Cordell Patterson, and to me, Cordell Patterson is an all-pro this year, Howie. Just a great year from Cordell.
First year he's ever had 1,000 scrimmage yards. I saw that today on the internet. He's got I forgot how much receiving, how much passing. It's roughly 50-50. I think about 500 passing, 500 or 500 receiving, 500 rushing. But he loves Atlanta. I started following him on Twitter back about a month or two ago, and it seemed like a week doesn't go by that he doesn't put on there saying, "Atlanta, I love y'all. I love being here." He's on a 1-year deal, so I feel like they're going to try to keep him for another couple of years at least. And somebody in the mainstream media made a great point the other day by saying, yes, he's 30, but considering the limited touches that he's had, he's about like a 26 or 27-year-old. He has not taken the beating like most other players have taken by the time they're 30.
Or like a Derrick Henry, or we've seen Christian McCaffrey miss most of the last 2 years. Dalvin Cook is beat up. I feel like Cordell deserves. Now, you're probably not going to give him a 2-year, $20 million contract, but I think Cordell's earned a couple of year, $4 or $5 million contract. I think they signed Davis to 2 years, $7 million. If Davis is getting 2 years, $7 million, Cordell deserves 2 years, $10 million, because he has been that football team's most consistent weapon from week 1 till now.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I love Cordell because he'll come out during warm-ups. You see all the other players running pass routes, doing this, doing that. He's standing on the sideline, chunking the ball up into the stands and playing catch with people. And he don't stay in the same spot. I saw him Sunday start at one side of the end zone and work his way all the way around to the other, just throwing it to different people.
Of course, my heart, I've always been a Cordell fan. We were privileged enough to have him in Knoxville for a couple of years. So Cordell's a great kid, and let's hope Atlanta keeps him. Now, we could obviously talk about the O-line play, which has been horrific, but I want to jump to outside to wide receiver. I think we finally, over the last month, kind of started to see what Pitts will be in the long run. And he's ever been the athlete that we ever thought he was. But Calvin Ridley has left the team for mental health reasons, and don't know if he's going to be back this season. But that's a big chunk of that team with Ridley gone. And Pitts, it's really Pitts and a bunch of Russell Gages, Zacharias, Tajay Sharp, kind of third and fourth guys, a couple of cast-off guys. So Pitts really don't have a lot of protection out there. Do you think Ridley gets himself back next year and is Calvin Ridley of old?
Being a fan of Atlanta, I hope he does, because Pitts is doing all this stuff, like you said, with no help at all.
None.
He's getting double teamed majority of the time and still putting up pretty decent numbers. And the last I heard, he's on pace to break all the rookie tight end records as far as yards and everything. Of course, he won't never break the TDs or anything like that, because Atlanta don't score touchdowns that much. But as far as receiving yards, he could break all that stuff. But on a personal level, I hope that Ridley takes the time to get healthy, whatever his situation is. I mean, you got the kid that Atlanta could have got instead that's playing out in Dallas. The linebacker, Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
They could have got him, and talking about a huge help to the defense. That'd been great. But now, hindsight being 2020, it's a great thing that we got Pitts when we did, because if we didn't have Pitts, we wouldn't have much of an offense at all as far as passing wise.
I want to talk about one player on defense, and then we'll run over our favorite semi-sport activity. To me, a true sport, but it's entertainment. We understand. Talk a little AEW. But defensive side, there's only one name that I really think has took a step forward. And that is 2 years ago, number one, A.J. Tyrell. At times, you see him as a number one now. And at times he still struggles. But, are you now seeing that A.J. Tyrell could be that cover corner or are you still seeing the struggles that he had in his rookie years?
No, he is the number one corner because of the what Pro Football power numbers and all that. He is the
Yeah,
number one ranked cornerback, even ahead of what's his name out there in Dallas that got all the interceptions, Diggs. Diggs. Travion Diggs. He got more intercept. He's ranked higher than Travion Diggs, but yet Diggs got more interceptions. But Travion gets beat more than anybody else does as well. But anyway, yeah, I see AJ being a great pickup for Atlanta. I see them eventually possibly doing him like the defenses that used to have Deion Sanders, just putting him on one side of the field, saying that's your side, you cover who's over there. We're going to play defense somewhere else, And when you got one guy that can take away basically kind of one side of the field, that's a huge help to your defense.
it is. There's definitely some pieces in Atlanta. There's at times, like I said, and I'll say it before we move on to AEW. It's time. Probably if there's a quarterback we like, it's probably time to go ahead and get him. Even if the plan is to set him behind Matt for a year. But I said earlier too, I thought Matt Ryan could go someplace that needs a quarterback for a couple of years, and really win a lot of football games. I personally think Kenny Pickett, maybe from Pitt, fits what Arthur Smith wants to do, but we'll see when it comes time. Let's move on over to AEW for a minute. You just got to go to a house show, or not a house show, but a recording of Dynamite and Rampage, 2 weeks ago?
That was last week.
Last week.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us a little bit about that.
It was difficult getting there, having to go on 285 in Atlanta. So anybody that's never been on 285
At rush hour.
Yeah, anybody that hasn't been on 285 doesn't know the pain and struggles of getting anywhere on 285. And now they got construction all over the place. So there you go. What used to be 6 and 8 lanes are down to basically 3. But anyway, now on a serious note, getting in there, Duluth, I forgot the name of the place, Gas South District Energy or something like that is a very nice place. It's a great place to watch an event. It's kind of like being at the BBCC like we went to when we went in Huntsville. But the crowd was energetic from the first match to the last match. Entertaining. It's great being able to go out and do something like that because we haven't been able to in the last year and a half, 2 years. So the matches was great, and the last thing I ever thought I'd see was a burning table in the middle of the ring, but I was able to see that. So the only thing I kind of missed was good old JR not being there, but other than that, it's great.
Well, of course, JR is dealing with skin cancer right now, and you're in our prayers, JR. But it was crazy once Cody went through that table. He actually pinned Andrade while he was still on fire. Could you see the flames in live?
Yeah, absolutely. Where we was sitting at, we were straight across from the hard camera, kind of at a little bit of an angle. But when he rolled Andrade up, I could see the flames in between Cody's back and sitting on Andrade's bicep area right in there.
Yeah.
And, you can see Andrade doing this number right here because it was burning him pretty good, And, but yeah, they was still quite a bit of fire there because of the camera angle. You couldn't see part of it, but where we're sitting at, you could see it,
The referee actually reached up and put out his shoulder. It must have been part of the table, some of the wood or something, and put his shoulder out of fire and then counted him out. A lot of new stars in AEW. Who did you see? Of course, we had a big heavyweight championship change a few weeks ago. Hangman Adam Page now is let's start there. How over is Hangman Adam Page?
He's not the most over. We both know the two people that's the most over right now. but
Yeah.
he's probably the third, as far as being over, and that's great for a young guy like that because
Carrying the world title, yeah.
yeah, he could make noise and be able to hold on to that title for quite some time. He is a fan favorite there. The two most over that came out was of course CM Punk and Bryan Danielson. Don't get me wrong, Baby Adam Cole did get a pretty good pop, but it wasn't the same as far as when Hangman came out there. And of course,
And MJF gets a huge pop, but it's a negative pop.
you took the words right out of my mouth. I should say MJF got a great round of boos and a few choice adjectives thrown his way. But it was at first we wasn't sure about the suit that MJF was wearing, and then they showed kind of like a close up on the jumbotron and realized it was for Hanukkah and all that stuff. So it was interesting, but yeah, it was great being able to be there. I wish I could have saw MJF actually wrestle, but I wasn't able to see him wrestle. But I was able to hear him on the mic, and you got certain people that you love to see them in action, but then on the flip side, you want to hear them. He's one of them. Jim Cornette, our good friend. Well, he ain't a good friend, but Jim Cornette, JC. We love JC, and we like to see him in action, but we much rather hear him talk than actually see him in action. And then, of course, it's a nature boy. Love watching him. I know you actually saw him wrestle many, many times and walked him
Yeah.
out and everything else. I got the privilege of being able to watch him wrestle a few times, but the mic work is where you get fired up at with certain people. And those three, MJF, JC, and Ric Flair, are the three that controls the mic.
I think about Cody's dad too, and I'd add him to the list. Dusty was in a league of his own. Uh, so Howie, coming in, we'll do this. Well, I said we'd do 30 minutes. We're already on 45, and we just now got started. That's the thing about it. We always talk about. I'll ask you one more question. Winter is coming up with AEW. Hangman versus Bryan Danielson. Some other matches to be in, but last year they debuted Sting at this. From what I understand, it's at a time in the middle of the winter, kind of good time to start new storylines. What do you make of the rumors that Wyndham Rotunda, aka formerly known as Bray Wyatt, could show up at Winter is Coming? It's about time, don't you think, he shows up somewhere?
Yeah, I feel like he may show up there, and we both know, and everybody knows that Tony Khan is one that's not scared to bring out 2 or 3 or 4 new additions at even though it's not a pay-per-view, but they're treating it kind of like a pay-per-view, but it's on free TV. It wouldn't surprise me if we see a couple other people just show up for this thing as well, and
It's going to be
possibly.
fun.
Possibly start a new stable of people. You never know. And, back to Wednesday night, you haven't saw this yet because it was taped beforehand, but it's actually on the YouTube channel now, I think. If not, it'll be on there next 20 minutes. A Go-Go came back.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see what storyline he's in. They were kind of pushing him pretty hard till he got had to go back home and the pandemic hit and they couldn't get back and everything. So it'd be interesting to see what he's got going on. But yeah,
He
back to
also had
the
another eye surgery while he was in England. So
right. But going back to the winter is coming, it should be a great event. You was like when we talked earlier, he was like, yeah, I know some of the stuff is going on. I'm like, I don't think you do. I said, they've only announced one. Oh no, they got more. And then you did some research and realized that hadn't. But that's a good thing to me. That's a good thing about AEW. They don't know really who they're going to put out there until the week before.
you feel like they know, but they don't advertise it. That's what I like
Right.
about it. So.
Yeah, absolutely right. The WWE's got that day one that's going to be in Atlanta January the 1st, and they've already got near the whole card filled out as far as who's going to be there and who's going to be doing what. But AEW, we know one match so far of their, it ain't a pay-per-view, but it's very similar to one that's going to take
Absolutely.
place Wednesday night, or a week from Wednesday night.
Week from Wednesday night. So uh, it, next week, Tyler Van, Thursday night, we'll get on. We'll probably run over it for a while, but we're going to try to get on here. Just stay patient with us, everybody. We had to miss a gap. We're back now. We really can't commit to what day of the week we'll be on, but just stay on River City Media, and we'll piece it together over the next few weeks. Hopefully, we can stay on Tuesday night for the most part. But like I said, next week on Thursday night, Coach Tyler Van will be on. We'll talk to Tyler about his off-season program. We'll talk to him about what's coming up, fundraising and everything else. Howie, it's good to get back and actually get to film a show, don't you think?
Yeah, it's great to be back, and hopefully we can, unfortunately, a lot of this jumping from day to day is my fault because of keeping the clock for 5. They don't start basketball like everybody else does because of their football run in the playoffs. So
Right.
their basketball schedule is pushed back, basically nearly a month compared to everybody else. And so for the next several weeks, it's going to be a lot of games because it ain't makeup games, but they want to try to get as many games in as possible before, the tournaments rolls around.
That's it. Well, Howie, it's been good to get back on here. Folks, just stay with us. We'll keep you up to date. Watch River City Media, watch Marion Messenger, and we'll get it out as we can. Next Thursday night, Tyler Van live on the air with Howie Chaney and I. Howie, no notes. No, I don't even have my other phone with me. This is the only time you'll ever see Randall completely without a cell phone in his hand because I live with a cell phone in my hand. So we went 42 minutes and with no script, no message, no nothing, and feel like we left something on the table. But for Howie Chaney, for Randall Cunningham, for River City Media, next Thursday night, Coach Tyler Van. Until then, have a good evening.
See you guys.